Hello, and welcome to the Godless Bitches podcast. This is Beth Presswood, here with Tracie Harris.
Howdy.
And Jen Peeples.
Hi, everybody.
Godless Bitches is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, and you can find us at bitches@atheist-community.org. You can email us there, and our website, godlessbitches.podbean.com. So how is everybody today?
Doing great.
Yeah, not too bad. Although I have a terrible crick in my neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but I've been eating painkillers all day.
Oh, well, there you go. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah. Well, they're not that much fun painkillers, you know. It's just ibuprofen and Tylenol. So.
Oh, none of the good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't had a show in a few weeks. I went to L.A., me and Matt, and we did some stuff and blah, 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 whatever. So, the first thing I wanted to talk about was something that I saw blow up all over my internet this morning. Angelina Jolie got her boobs cut off.
Yeah.
And
well, you know, they're her boobs.
Well, yeah. They're not like everybody else's boobs to, comment on and mourn the loss of, as I did see. But yes, Angelina Jolie found out that she had a mutation in her BRCA gene that conferred on her an 87% chance of breast cancer.
That's pretty scary.
Yes, that's huge. We don't know a lot of genes, but we do know the BRCA genes. It's a very small percentage of all breast cancer, probably less than 5%. Her mom did die of the disease. And that's one of those rare genes that, you're just going to get it, pretty much.
Yeah.
Most genes don't have that sort of effect. It's sort of, lifestyle and everything. But really, if you got BRCA1, and that's pretty much the only treatment you can do for it, too. I saw people claiming that, you could just increase your screening and everything, but that's really just not as good. Her risk went down to 5%.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about that is screening only provides early warning that you have it.
Yeah, you've already got it, and you're hoping that you caught it early enough.
Yeah, it doesn't prevent it, and it surely doesn't cure it. And so, she's done what she can do to prevent her ever having it.
Yeah, it was really the best thing she could have done, and it's what her doctors recommended. She also has a 50% chance of ovarian cancer, and I think she's contemplating taking those out too.
Yeah.
That's there's absolutely no test or no warning for that disease.
Yeah.
So, but it's great, and it's really great she came out. She could have just gone and done it, and then not ever done a nude scene in a movie again, because I'm sure she's going to have some scarring, even though she did have reconstructive surgery. So she does have fake boobs in there now, she said.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that she came out about it, one of the biggest sex symbols in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And she's coming out to say, hey, my life was more important than my boobs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And considering the fact that she's a parent also, this is, if you don't have kids and you want to roll the dice, that you maybe won't get cancer. I support somebody's decision. It's their life. They can do what they want to do. But, when you have kids, I think that adds another layer to, the decision making there. And, that's one of the things that she said. She wanted to be there for her kids.
Well, especially having her mother die of it,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and that's, I think it's just amazing she came out and told everybody that, raising awareness. Now, that's not the cause of most breast cancers, and, most women are never going to need to do that, but just wow. I was just amazed when I saw it this morning, because it's Angelina freaking Jolie.
I know.
I was really glad to see all the support that she got.
Yeah.
Every comment
Yeah.
I saw on my page was positive, and it seemed like everybody was really supportive of it. And, that's, I think, the part that made me happy was just seeing everybody else, saying bravo.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yes, and of course there were some corners of the internet that were, oh my god, she has no more boobies, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't see too much of that, but I saw links to some of that, which I guess some of that can't be avoided, but still, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it brings up a whole lot of things, because she, Myriad, which is a company, has the patent on the isolation of the BRCA genes, which they say that they still allow people to freely research and that you can get second opinions after doing their test. I've heard conflicting things on that, and I have problems with patenting genes or patenting the isolation of genes, but the test that she took cost $3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Yes, and with tons of people being uninsured or their insurance not paying for that, I mean, they just sit around wondering if they have 2 bombs on their chest.
Yeah.
So it's a huge women's health issue and an insurance issue and maybe a socialized medicine issue. There's just so much to it.
Well, and the thing is, it's like, I mean, even the cost to treat somebody who ultimately doesn't survive it is probably, I'm sure, more than having their breast removed and having it tested.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what more you want to say about that. There's a lot of issues with body image and things, and I did have women commenting that, they would never do that. That, culturally and physically and sexually, they would never do that. And it's a big thing. There are women who die every year because they won't submit to mastectomy.
Yeah.
And that's just horrible.
That's pretty heartbreaking. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, you gotta say, everybody can make their choice. But the fact is, if you've got that 87% chance, that's the only choice. And if you've already got cancer, it may be the only choice.
I just feel like in a world where I can walk into a clinic and say that I want my breasts enlarged to a size that is beyond the normal breast size in the U.S. and have that done without very much problem at all, I can't see why there should be any controversy surrounding having your breast removed, especially when there is, when the medical community says this is medical prevention, like disease prevention, legitimate disease prevention. I don't know. I mean, I guess I kind of wish that the surgery to have them removed was more popular, because in a lot of ways, I don't necessarily care about my own. They don't really do much for me, and they're kind of inconvenient in a lot of ways. This is just a personal thing. I understand. It's like you're saying, different people have different body image. It's not like I hate them like some kind of weird body dysmorphia, but I don't see the point to them on myself. And since I never wanted to physically bear children, they've never been important to me. I don't care. And I certainly see it as sadly ironic that something that does nothing and is completely superfluous to my survival, kind of like an appendix, should also be a thing that can kill me, kind of like an appendix. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I probably wouldn't go and have my appendix removed, but I don't have to sit there and buy clothing that works with my appendix. I don't have to find shirts that look okay with my appendix and that don't, look funny because of my appendix. The appendix that I've got doesn't do much to cause me issues just in my day-to-day life, whereas I think breasts do. I absolutely, we've talked about this, Beth, I think, in social media, where I am just not a fan of bras. Don't like them, finally just gave up, said I can't do this. These things are just like, torture contraptions, in my opinion. Um, I've had some that were better than others, but it's like the cost of them, the extreme lengths that you sometimes have to go to when you have an odd body shape, or when you know what I mean, if you need to do something custom, it's just crazy. It's not like buying a pair of underwear, and they're often not comfortable unless you go and get like a very nice bra, which can be very expensive, and it's only going to last you, you know, so many months, and then you're going to be buying it again. I don't know. I mean, I'm way off on a tangent here, but I guess what I'm saying is, to me, they're kind of more trouble than they're worth. But that's just like a personal assessment, and I understand that that's, you know, that's only, I can only speak for myself in that.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I mean, yeah, I have to go get special bras, specially fitted, and I mean, the only reason I even like them is because if I didn't have them, my stomach would look much bigger. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I absolutely hate going out and shopping for a bra because it's just a hassle. And there's like so many bazillion different kinds. And it's like, I don't care, you know, just, I don't know, just whatever works, you know. Sports bras are fine, you know, but a bra that I would wear, you know, with regular clothes or something, I hate shopping for those.
Well, I have like an odd size, and it's, for me, I can walk into a store and I'm lucky to find 3 or 4 bras out of the entire bra section that are even my size. And then when I find my size and try them on, I'm lucky if any of them even look okay or fit okay. I cannot buy a bra off the rack and be happy with it. I can make do with it, but I can't be happy. And I'm not going to go and buy custom bras all the time. It's ridiculous. Like, for what? To hold up my breasts that aren't, it's like, I'm sorry they're even there.
Well, I guess one of the upsides to getting older is that it seems that my boobs have shrunk slightly.
Oh, so gosh.
It's like,
lucky
okay,
you.
Well, that's fine. You know, but you know, I you know, true confession time here. When I was in the Army and I was flying, you know, one of the things that you find out in flight school is that you definitely don't want to be wearing any kind of synthetic underwear. Because if you're in a post-crash fire or something like that, you know, synthetic stuff kind of melts to your skin.
Ugh.
And so anyway, I decided at that point, it's like, well, you know, every bra I have has some kind of synthetic in it. And so I just ditched the bras, and I didn't wear bras when I was flying. And just by virtue of the way the flight suits are constructed, you can't tell. So it was fairly awesome. I didn't have to worry about wearing a bra for most of the time I was in the military, even though Army regulations say you're supposed to, but, you know, who's going to do that inspection?
I gave it up. I just quit. I was like, I can't do this, and I quit. I'm throwing in the towel. You know, the bra manufacturers win. They've beat me. They've defeated me. They've made me admit that I just cannot do it. And so I'm done with it. I put an undershirt on so I don't look too nipply, and then whatever I put on over it. And unless I'm like doing something where I think I need the support, I mean, I have a bra that I can wear, but I'm not putting that thing on every day. I'm done with it.
Well, this is one of the sucky things about nipple rings, but you have to wear a bra if you do not want just everything to show. You could wear 3 or 4 layers, and that shit's still gonna show. So,
you know, well,
yeah,
I never wanted my nipple pierced. So.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about that, luckily. So
yeah,
I can't speak to it.
yeah, I think I'm gonna take mine out sometime. They're just boring. But anyways, we can talk about something else now. So the Plan B thing, we're actually a little late on this. I think we may have talked about it in the last one. I'm not sure. But a judge said Plan B should be available to everybody, all the time, everywhere, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yes.
But the Obama administration
I know.
said, Well, we think it should only be available to people 15 and older with ID.
Yes, because 15-year-olds have fucking ID. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, this is the thing. There's no reason to have any age restriction on it at all. It's not dangerous to any ages.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like there are tons and tons of 14-year-olds that need it. It's really not. Most 14-year-olds aren't having sex. Barely something like 10% have even ever had sex. And most of that was, one or two times.
Yeah. But those are the ones that you want to have access to this if they need it. Because if for whatever reason they are, having sex, whether it's consensual or not consensual, and they had a birth control failure or they weren't using birth control or whatever, we absolutely want this group to have access to Plan B.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh, God. I mean, if a 14-year-old is having sex, the last thing they need is to get pregnant, too.
Yeah.
But aren't we really as a society, though, just like a bunch of tittering adolescents? I mean, when I go to the regular store, my regular grocery store has the condoms on lockdown.
They
Really?
get stolen.
Yeah, locked up in a cabinet.
Because
Wow.
they get stolen otherwise. Because people don't want to buy them, too scared, too embarrassed. So condoms get stolen a lot.
See, I don't understand that because I've bought condoms for, whenever I needed them for years. Because for those who don't know, I don't need them for birth control, but they're good to have on your toys. Just, so you don't have to just stop and, go wash the toy off or something like that. You just rip the condom off, put a new one on, whatever. Anyway. So, buying condoms, that people still get embarrassed about that? Really?
Apparently so.
We just can't. I mean, we're just
Yikes.
not adult enough, not mature enough as a society to deal with sex. We still have not come to grips with humans are sexual. It's embarrassing to live in a culture where, it's basically run by a 12 to 14-year-old mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the thing about Plan B, it isn't even, tons of 14-year-olds and 10-year-olds and whatever age, the right wing wants to say today. It's that 15 and 16-year-olds aren't going to get this if you have to show ID. If you have any restriction on it at all, it's not going to help. Right now, it's 17 and over with ID. And most people don't know. They did a phone survey of pharmacies, and they would tell 17-year-olds that they had to be 18.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they think if there's any age restriction, that it's, 18.
And what I don't understand about this is that, especially from the Obama administration, it's like, okay, let's take a look for a minute at the risks of pregnancy and compare them with the risks of Plan B. It's not even comparable.
No,
and then
it's not.
If you factor in the additional risks of, young teenage girls being pregnant, because they were at much higher risk for certain pregnancy-related conditions, it's not even something we need to think about. Of course they should have Plan B. Maybe we should issue it to them when they get to junior high so they have it available to them at all times. Or just, give it to the school nurse. Tell the school nurse, dispense on request. No questions asked,
Oh, they would hate that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they would hate that. But
Well, I remember seeing in the news they had like the legislature was arguing about this. And I sarcastically said, so is this how we determine what drugs are for sale without prescription and at what ages? This is how we do it. The legislature like looks at each drug that's being, reviewed by FDA, and they're the ones that then decide what to do with these drugs. No, they don't.
No.
The Food and Drug Administration and the AMA, that's who needs to be making this decision. And the legislature doesn't need to be involved in this. This is a decision to be made by the medical community.
Yep,
Period.
I agree.
Oh, but
That's
it's
who needs to
about
make the choice.
female sexuality, so therefore it has to, go to the legislature and the Obama administration. And see, that's just what gets me. Like, I don't rant a lot politically, and I don't understand a lot politically, I'll just go ahead and say. But what the fuck do they hope to gain? Seriously, he's already won. The right-wingers get mad no matter what. They get mad just because Plan B exists. He's not gaining any goodwill there. He's losing the goodwill that pro-choicers have for him. I mean, really? I mean, moderates that can't be educated as to the facts about Plan B?
Well, and the only thing I can think about is that, you know, he's getting hung up on his role as a parent. You know, he's looking at his own daughters and saying, oh, I wouldn't want them going in and buying Plan B, you know, at their age. That's the only thing I can think of, because
the other thing though is that even if he can't run for another term, there's other Democrats in the legislature. I mean, they have to run again too.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like they can just ignore the angry pandering of these child-minded right wingers. I mean, it's very sad that there's so many of them and that they are so politically active, because it doesn't take many of them to really throw up a pretty good challenge, because a lot of people who are moderate don't vote. And so you end up having very few, very conservative, crazy, you know, childlike people being able to really enforce what they want, even if they're not a majority, because they're a big voting bloc.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, you know, he's done things like he voted against the Born Alive Infants Protection Act, which was basically there's this law that said if a baby's born alive during an abortion, you have to, you know, give it medical care, which we're going to talk about that in a minute. But the thing was, this was a bill that was built on false pretenses of late-term abortions and such, and false testimony. And he called that out when almost nobody else would, because you don't vote against, you know, Born Alive Infant Protection Act. But he did. He did then. He was so hardcore pro-choice. And then he gets in there and he won't even fight for birth control. It's just amazing to me. I don't know. But they're appealing. They're having a stay on the order to make it available to everyone on the shelf. So we're going to see what happens. I just don't know. I really hope that health and science actually win.
I just see this, like, you know, big voting block of people who are like, ooh, boobies. It's like they just don't, you know what I mean? That's like their mentality. They have the mentality of like tittering children.
Yeah, I know. It's like, where are the adults?
Like, giggle, giggle, you talked about sex. That's naughty.
SEX.
You can't look at that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the paternalism that just drips from some of the conversations that people have about birth control and access to abortion and just general reproductive health issues is infuriating. You know, this idea that there's a politician somewhere who is in a better position to decide what, you know, my healthcare needs are than I am.
Well, who's better capable of making decisions about what drugs should be available to what people than a freaking medical association?
Exactly.
Than a Food and Drug Administration that they've built in order to make these types of decisions.
Yeah.
The hell's it for if you're not going to use it? If you're going to sit there and override it with your layman's understanding of the issue?
Yeah.
You don't understand this crap. You're not a doctor. And a doctor's telling you this is fine to sell. And it's not just one doctor. I mean, this is pretty much consensus that this is okay to sell.
Yeah, and not only that, but just the fact that, you know, a sizable percentage of these legislators who are trying to, you know, protect me from this drug also are creationists, or, they are, conspiracy theorists of some stripe. They subscribe to ridiculous claims like they believe homeopathy has some validity or whatever, And I'm sitting here looking at this thinking, you guys can't think your way out of a paper bag. And you think that you're in a better position to tell women in general what their healthcare choices should be? And that you should overrule an agency whose job it is to decide which drugs are safe and which ones aren't.
Yeah, you have a JD, not an MD.
Yeah. And we're not sure how you got that, But
well, I'm not going to say it's not hard, but
I know some of them I look at them and think you should give it back.
Well, I think Liberty University has a law school.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Oh, they branched out into psychology too now. I can't wait.
Oh, yes, that. So, anyway, also on the reproductive health front, Dr. Kermit Gosnell was found guilty of murder.
Good.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So, for those of you who don't know, it's been all over the news, despite anti-choicers saying it hasn't been all over the news.
Yeah, I've seen it several times already. Every time there's been an update, I've seen it. I've posted articles myself on my social media.
Yeah. So, he was a doctor in Philadelphia who did illegal abortions. Basically, just killing babies.
Yeah, he was a butcher.
Yeah, he would allow babies to be born. I don't know if it's because he didn't know, the actual ways to do late-term abortions, which are really only done for medical reasons, but he was doing them electively, which is illegal. Let us just say, illegal. And, women would give birth to living babies, and he would then kill them by snipping their spinal cords. He also killed some women by perforating their uteruses and such. He let untrained 15-year-olds administer anesthesia. Let his cats shit all over his clinic. He also did non-FDA approved testing of devices that would abort fetuses that had to do with putting balls of razor blades in women's uteruses.
Oh, God. Yeah.
He kept severed baby feet in jars and babies in the freezer. He was fucked up, crazy motherfucker.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
He was not, he was not a good abortion doctor. He's not representative of any.
Well, he wasn't a good doctor. No.
Yeah.
The guy's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that needs to be emphasized in this whole thing, I mean, this guy was a ghoul. I mean, he not a good doctor, not a good person, horrible human being. Part of the reason women were in a position where they sought late-term abortions from a butcher like this is because the anti-abortion people have made it so damn difficult to get an early-term abortion. I am certain that those women, if they'd had a way of getting a first trimester abortion, I'm certain that the majority of those women would have taken it because it would have been, much less expensive, much easier on them physically, psychologically, everything, to get a first trimester abortion rather than wait and have a late term abortion by this butcher. And certainly it would have been better for them, health wise, because this guy clearly put women's lives at risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, part of the responsibility for women being in this position in the first place must rest squarely at the feet of the anti-abortion lobby, that they want to make it as difficult as possible for a woman to exercise a right that the Supreme Court says she has. And, Tracie, you've made a point many times that basically if you have a right, but people make it impossible for you to exercise that right, then they've essentially denied you the right.
Right. Robbing you of capacity is basically taking away your right. And my, there were a couple things. First of all, somebody posted on my wall where I posted one of these articles saying that people were complaining that liberals weren't posting this, that they were being silent about it. And I was like, well, feel free to tell that a liberal feminist who posted it. I've posted it twice this morning, 2 different articles. And I said, if you want every abortion to be like this, just go ahead and outlaw abortion. Because that's what you'll have. That's what we had before. That's why it's legal now. And that's why something like this is in the news, because it's something rare, not something common. If it was everyday abortion practice, it wouldn't even be news, because it would be a normal abortion. What made this so atrocious and such a newsworthy item, what makes anything a news item, is that it's a unique or rare event or thing. So this was not normal. And there was an article that was headlined something like, "What does this case mean for the future of abortion?" And I really couldn't even believe that question was being asked. And I was like, recently here in Texas, I think it made national news. So I don't know outside of the U.S. if people have heard about it, but here in Texas, we had a massive explosion at a fertilizer plant. And it turned out that the fertilizer plant was not following regulations, that this explosion could have been avoided had they been following the law and doing what they were supposed to do. It wouldn't even dawn on me to think, what does this mean to the future of fertilizer production plants in the U.S.? I mean, this was not a normal thing. It's not normal for a fertilizer facility to explode.
Yeah.
Right. So
even though
that's why it was news.
Yeah. Even though it's highly risky. And in fact, the risk that a fertilizer plant will explode because, this kind of, ammonium nitrate fertilizer is highly explosive.
Well, yeah, it can be used in bombs.
Yeah. The risk from ammonium nitrate is higher than the risk of a first trimester abortion to the woman having the abortion. So,
But I mean, it was just so weird to me that somebody would look at something like that and say, "Oh, we should ban fertilizer production."
Yeah.
Who would think that? I mean, who would even say that? And before, if somebody is trying to use this weird, egregious violation, unregulated, crazy butcher as a reason to ban abortion or to restrict abortion, I guess my thought would be then every time somebody faith heals their kid to death, we should ban religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe we should ask about the future of pressure cookers in light of the Boston Marathon.
Actually, there was a guy arrested in an airport with a pressure cooker. It was ridiculous. Yeah. It was very, very ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, but he had a Saudi passport, so.
Well, that was really sad because, I mean, I agreed with what his nephew was quoted. I believe it was his nephew who was quoted. And I was like, right on. The kid said, if we were going to do something like a bomb with a pressure cooker, I wouldn't ask my uncle to bring it from Saudi. I would just tell him to come and we could buy one here.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. I mean, seriously, they're going to smuggle in a legal item from Saudi and carry it on a plane all the way here from Saudi because they're so hard to come by in the U.S.
Yeah.
But nobody needs a pressure cooker.
God, it was just ridiculous.
No. You can just use your crock pot.
Yeah.
Oh, no. No, you can't. I mean, not if you're cooking. I don't know if you can make bombs out of a crock pot. If that's what you meant. I have no clue. I don't know the dynamics of crock pot bombs.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm just saying somebody could justify that by saying you can soften your food another way. I don't know.
I'm going to make a weapon from my strainer tonight. It's so weird. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, if you were going to make a bomb out of something like that, you probably wouldn't bring it with you. It's a little bit of a bulky item for people that aren't real familiar with a pressure cooker. It's not something that you would want to have to lug from Saudi. He said he brought it because when his family here bought one, they used it once, it broke, and so he felt like they were crap, and so he was bringing a good one.
A good one for a better bomb.
Mm.
Yeah, there you go.
Apparently. I think you want them to come apart if you're making a bomb with them.
I'm just glad that, several years ago when I brought a waffle iron with me, on a plane that, nobody freaked out, although they almost did.
A waffle.
This.
Why did you need a waffle iron?
Well, see, what happened was my ex had taken it with her when she
Beth is
moved.
dialing the CIA right now.
Yeah, and I actually flew up to. She wasn't my ex at the time. I flew up to visit her, and I wanted to repossess my waffle iron because this waffle, it's a special waffle iron. It actually makes waffles in the shape of the state of Texas.
Oh yeah,
it's a twaffle iron.
I figured since she lived in Indiana, she didn't need my Texas waffle iron. So I was taking it home with me, and I was coming through security, and it shows up on the X-ray. So of course they have to disassemble my baggage to look at the waffle iron. And yeah, there was a TSA agent. Well, they weren't TSA at the time; they were the rent-a-cops that used to do the security thing at the time. And they were like opening it and closing it and asking, "What is this?" And I'm like, "It's a waffle iron. Do you want me to make waffles for you or something?" And finally, they accepted my explanation that it was indeed a waffle iron and let me go. But anyway, that was interesting.
Okay.
I'm just glad that it wasn't post 9/11 because I'd probably be in Guantanamo Bay right now or something for attempting to smuggle a waffle iron from Indiana back to Texas.
You would have lost that waffle iron, that's for sure. Do you still have that waffle iron?
I do, in fact.
You should make some waffles.
I was going to say, do you want me to make some waffles?
Post them on Facebook, yeah.
All right.
You should. All right. So those were my 3 main stories. We got through them pretty quick because, there's not too much you can say about them. They're pretty at face value. So another one real quick. Minnesota, gay marriage. Woo!
Yeah.
Very cool. Another one down.
I know, and I posted a graphic that, had to do with that. 13 down, 38 to go, and it has all the little states that have it in, rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, until there's a Supreme Court case, until they decide that and say that all states have to recognize those marriages, it's good, but it's...
Yeah.
I reserve my celebration. Let's just say.
I agree. And, we were talking about, I was at a PTA meeting last night. I was talking to some people about, maybe we should write to our legislator here in Texas, our state legislator, and ask, can we please repeal the Texas ban on marriage? And, right away so that we can please not be last on this issue, because I figure if we get started now, we have a small chance of not being last.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but until you have something that says all states have to recognize marriages from other states, same-sex marriages, these people they aren't really married, not in the fullest sense of the word.
Right.
I mean, if somebody in Minnesota gets married tomorrow, which I know it's not true, they'll have a small waiting period for it, and they come to Texas, they're not going to be married in Texas. And until they are, we cannot really say that we have gay marriage.
Well, not only that, but there's still the issue of DOMA. And DOMA prevents people who are legally married in any state from being recognized at the federal level. So, for example, the U.S. military. The U.S. military doesn't recognize common law marriage. In order to be considered married in the military, you have to have a marriage license. However, because of DOMA, even if you have a marriage license from, say, Massachusetts or New York or Minnesota, the military doesn't recognize it because DOMA says they can't. And so that's a problem.
Yeah.
It just disturbs me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very disturbing. I mean, there are people who are legally married to service members, and because these people are same-sex couples, if the service member is, killed in the line of duty, then the military doesn't necessarily recognize that person's spouse as next of kin. There are ways you can designate someone as next of kin, but normally if you're married, that's your next of kin by default. And you get all kinds of services because you are the spouse of a military member.
Yeah, absolutely.
These spouses can't get that.
Yeah, which is just...
And it's just out of pure hate and spite.
It is. It literally has no effect at all on anyone else, except, it matters a lot to the people who are in, same-sex relationships, who are married and who can't get any kind of federal recognition or even state recognition of their marriage. It matters a lot to people in that situation. It matters not at all to everybody else.
It's just to vindictively screw somebody over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just don't like you. I just don't freaking approve of you as a human being. And so I will make sure that the law discriminates against you, because I don't want to have to consider you equal. And somehow I think that if the law considers you equal, that I'm forced to. And it's like, no, honestly, even if the law recognizes gay marriage, you can still be a bigot.
Yeah.
You're welcome to your hate and bigotry.
Yeah.
You absolutely, feel free to be as hateful and as bigoted and spiteful and angry and unhappy as you want to be, and as overly concerned with other people's crap that doesn't concern you as you want, as busybody, nosy, unable to focus on your own life because you're so busy looking at what other people are doing and freaking out that it's not what you would do. You have every right to just occupy yourself with all that negative crap until the day you die and make yourself as miserable as you want, and I wouldn't stand in your way.
Yeah, and in fact, I would encourage someone to be as vocal about their bigotry as possible, so
please.
all know who you are.
Please wear a shirt that says, I hate you if you're gay, and enjoy your misery, enjoy your inhumanity, just enjoy being a hateful bigot, if that's what it takes to make you unhappily happy. But that's got nothing to do with the law.
But if the law isn't bigoted, then fewer people are probably going to be bigoted. That's their thinking.
I guess, yeah. And I guess in my head, though, it's like, I don't know, for my own life, I don't care if people are bigoted. I do care when their bigotry falls into areas where it impacts me in real ways, where I can't live and I can't do things, and I'm restricted in my rights and civil liberties and freedoms. That's when I start to give a crap what you think. If you're just a hateful bigot, but you don't stand in the way of progress, I mean, that's a rare individual, I admit, but if they could just learn that changing the law is not going to force them to change their mind. Whether or not other people change their minds because the law changes, that's up to them. But there's nothing about a law recognizing gay marriage that is going to force a person who hates gay people, or I guess they're not comfortable acknowledging that they hate gay people. So let's just say a person who thinks that gay people are an abomination. Those people can still think that. No law can go into your head and make you stop thinking that if you're really bent on thinking that. So you don't have to be afraid of the law. You don't have to worry about what the law is doing. It's got nothing to do with you. It's not stopping you from being a bigot. Feel free.
Yeah, I agree. But then again, these are the same people who think that passing a law saying that being gay is illegal is somehow going to make, gay people disappear. Yeah. Or at least
Isn't that interesting? And that's a young person wrote to TAE, and they were asking about how to talk to their parents. And one of the comments that they were making was about their mother, and they said that they're away at college, and their parents don't ask them if they're active in their Christianity while they're away. Like when they come home, they're expected to go to church still, but nobody asks, were you going to church or are you going to church? And the person said, I get the impression, especially from my mother, that she doesn't want to know. So in other words, mom has the idea already, according to how this kid is interpreting their mother's behavior. and communication. The kid thinks mom knows I'm not attending church anymore and that something's going on, but mom's not asking. She doesn't want to bring it up. She just wants to let sleeping dogs lie, right? And a lot of times when we see kids come out as atheists to their families, there's like these weird punitive things that come across, right? Like the family gets super punitive real quick. And the Bible actually encourages this, that you should shun people, that you should, it's like this kind of weird godly thing to turn your back on them, pull your support from them, don't help them, don't be there for them anymore, just treat them like they're dead. And that's supposed to be helpful because it's going to make the person conform, right? When they lose all their social support and their family support and love, then they will get desperate. They'll have nowhere else to turn, and they will come back out of pure leverage and necessity, right? I mean, because they've got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And it's a weird idea because if your religion revolves around belief in God and love of God, these kind of measures don't really make a person believe, right? Making someone come back and go to church and pray at dinner and, observe these rituals, it makes them just sort of pretend that they're back in line. But in reality, the thing that is going to determine whether or not they are really a Christian and really right with God and really going to make it to heaven is that attitude and that belief toward God. If the person lacks that, then it doesn't matter how many prayers they say and how many times they go to church and whether or not they're taking communion, or it's completely irrelevant. The person is destined for hell or not heaven, depending on, what you believe. But the idea that I'm going to just punitively bend you to behave how I want you to behave, according to the Christian doctrines, that doesn't even make sense, right? I mean, it's like a weird thing that Christians are asked to do in order to treat somebody who leaves like that to make them come back. Because when they come back, they're not coming back because they believe it. They're coming back because of pressure, right? Social pressure. So it doesn't really change the way the person believes. And so what they're really saying is, come back and just don't talk about your non-belief anymore. Pretend that you still believe, and you just keep going to church, and then this is going to be okay. I don't care if you end up in hell, just don't let anybody see it, right? Like pretend that you're not, pretend that you're a Christian and just live a lie. And this will appease many parents because every kid that we've ever heard that wrote to us who said, my parents got really angry and they quit talking to me, and they'll give this list of all these things. My parents pulled my college funding. My parents kicked me out. My dad hit me. It's like you hear all these stories and it's like, this can't possibly accomplish changing the child's mind. It's only going to accomplish making them conform from a behavioral standpoint. So it doesn't really gain the parent what they're claiming they want from the kid, which is belief in God. It doesn't get them what they want. So they really aren't after belief in God. They're after a dishonest sort of display of conformity and obedience. Whether the belief is there or not, whether the child's going to hell or not, they really couldn't care less. And that's what's ironic is there's this spiel of, but now I'm so upset because if you're going to go to hell and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, if I come back to church, I'm still going to go to hell because I still don't believe. So this isn't really about you being upset that I'm going to hell, right? This is about you being upset that I'm acting like I don't believe, not that I actually don't believe. That's not what bothers you, right? And every time I hear this, it reminds me of a story that I read that was part of the book Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, where there's a section on that about the citizens who are slaves in the state and the idea of how slaves were dealt with in Rome. And at one point, it talks about how there were huge numbers of slaves in the city. Now, the issue was in clothing, right? Because in Rome, your clothing determined your status. So people could look at you and look at what you were wearing and how you were dressed. And based on what you wore, this is how your social standing and your social status was communicated to other people. If you wore a particular type of tunic, you were in the Senate. If you wore a particular type of clothing, you were like in the upper class. You had other things that were more peasant wear. And what was weird is they had freemen and slaves, right? And you would think then that there would be garb that you would dress your slaves in, that a slave would have to wear something to identify them as a slave. In a class-based society, where you have this really rigid caste stuff going on and where everybody's identifying themselves with clothing, how weird is it that they didn't have a particular type of clothing that was identifying a slave? The slaves basically wore the same clothing as the freemen who were in the lower economic tiers. And you think to yourself, why? Like, why? Well, it was debated in the Senate. And so what happened was they knew there were huge numbers of slaves within the society, and slaves often went out into the city. It wasn't like they were kept in cages. These slaves were house slaves and servants that did chores and things. And so they would send slaves to do the shopping. Your servants would go and do all these things. And these people lived in the city. The fear of the Senate was that if you put them into some sort of clothing or you give them something to wear that identifies them immediately as a slave, the slaves will see each other and they will recognize that they have vast numbers. When you have them in a piece of clothing that keeps them from identifying themselves as slaves, they don't know how many other people on the street are slaves. But if they see how many slaves there are, we're going to have a problem because there's lots of them.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so the fear is if they start to see each other and they start to realize the numbers we're talking about here of slaves in the city, and they start to understand what happens with solidarity here, and they're seeing themselves in the same uniform, we might have an uprising. And I honestly think that, consciously or not, that this sort of concept is what drives the shut up and get back in line and don't act like an atheist in the religious community. I think that the real reason that they give, that they want you to go to heaven, is clearly a lie, because it doesn't align with what they're doing. What they do won't achieve that. It will only achieve a behavioral conformity, right? So their claim that this is to get you back into the church and get you back into belief is clearly false, because it doesn't work that way. So they're just trying to conform your behavior. And so the question becomes, I'm sure that in their heads, there's like this disconnect where they actually believe, partially what they're saying there. I think that clearly when you see a parent doing this kind of dramatics to the kid, you can see that it's a bit codependent acting and victimization. Oh, how can you do this to me? Almost like the Jewish parents on Jerry Seinfeld, and how they'll, oh, George, like, how can you do this to your mother? And it's like, it's not about you. It's about him. It's his life. And, so you're just using this sort of, you've done this to me, like you're stressing me out, to sort of get him to stop doing what he's doing and just control him is really all it is, right? It's like parental blackmail, emotional blackmail. So I really think that when what they're saying they're trying to do is clearly not going to be accomplished by what they're doing, you have to look for what is the real reason. Like, why are they really doing this? Because it's not the reason that they're saying, because this doesn't make sense, right? What they're saying they want to accomplish is not what's accomplished by this. So that's clearly not true, whether they believe it or not. So what is the real pragmatic reason that people are doing this? And I think that what drives it is the recognition that the more people who stand up when you're trying to do uniform belief and say, I don't agree with this, it becomes dangerous. It becomes dissent, right? You're breaking ranks, and it's not acceptable.
And I think this desire to have everyone conform to this religious ideal, this is why we had Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the military. That actually was that policy came directly from some fundamentalist Christians who were in policy positions within Department of Defense. And it's also the basis for, the cliche, there are no atheists in foxholes.
Sure.
And why for the longest time in the military, you couldn't even put atheist on your dog tags. If you wanted dog tags that said atheist, you had to go off post and buy them yourself, but the military would not put atheist on your dog tags. And that was a way of basically denying the existence of atheists in the military.
Well, we see the same thing in the Middle East, too. There are certain nations in the Middle East that are, Islamic theocracies who will make claims about happy families. We have such a low divorce rate. Clearly our families are so happy. And it's like, or they're too scared to get a divorce, or getting a divorce is really difficult. When you're in a situation where you're fleeing from your abusive husband and his family hunts you down and cuts your face off, maybe not divorcing and just staying there and getting hit would be a considerable alternative.
Yeah.
At that point, you know what I mean? Especially when the state is going to, you know, fine him or something for that crime. And so you put people in a situation where divorce is like a non-option, and then you go around bragging that your low divorce rate demonstrates how happy Muslims are.
Oh, or that there are no gay people in Iran.
There you go.
Yeah. Or that you know, women don't get raped in these, you know, cultures, and that's because if you do come forward and say you've been raped, then you get beaten for basically adultery or whatever.
Well, you let somebody rape you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, isn't that the logic?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just keep him quiet. Like, there's only one gay NBA player or whatever. I guess he's not in the NBA right now. He's like on contract or whatever. But, you know, one gay professional big time sports player in all of the U.S. And, you know, they're just not there. So everybody's straight, right? Everybody's straight. And it allows them to keep propagating that lie that, you know, it's not normal to be gay. And, you know, these people they're so few. And what's weird is when you start meeting more and more gay people, you're just sort of like, no, this is crap. I mean, this is total crap, right? And, you know, I knew a woman that was an older woman, raised JW, and I might have mentioned this before, you know, and she was, of course, taught all the unnatural, abomination, you know, horrible gays, whatever. And she said that when she started reading on her own, and she came across stories about children that were born with like confused genitalia, right? Different types of genitalia, that it's not just male and female. And she thought to herself, you know, bravo for thinking for herself, hey, if God would let people be born with like really confused genitalia that's not cut and dry, male or female, maybe he lets people be born with some kind of confusion about gender identities and about orientations. And, you know, maybe it's possible that it's not just men and women, you know? You just pretend these things don't happen. There's not. And it's like when a child is born with genitals like that, sometimes they simply make the decision to make it a boy or make it a girl. You know, we're just going to cut it up and make it something that's more identifiable and, you know, easier to categorize. And so you just sort of make them boys and girls, and then we're all boys and girls, right? You know, I mean.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure to enforce this gender binary on people, and I think that's why, you know, we have there's actually a thread in the Atheist Community Facebook page right now that talks about, you know, hermaphrodites, you know, human hermaphrodites. Is it real or not? And, you know, they you know, there's a lot of discussion about that, and most people have come up and said, no, it's not really a real thing in humans. Maybe there have been a handful of cases, but it's, you know, true hermaphrodites are not something we really see in humans or in mammals in general. And most of the cases where people are saying, you know, these are hermaphrodites, it's not, they're intersex.
Right.
And so, you know, you have you know, genitals that don't fit neatly into either male or female category. And so then, you know, at that point you have to go to the individual and say, you know, do you identify?
What do you think of yourself? Yeah. How do you identify yourself?
Yeah. Do you identify as male or female or none of the above or whatever, you know? So yeah, I think it's an uncomfortable situation for people who, you know, have been socialized to believe that there is this strict gender binary and you're either male or female, but, you know, nothing in between. And
it can be, I mean, honestly, I think, you know, just speaking for myself, and I don't think I'm unique in this, though, it can be kind of confusing when you have grown up always identifying with what you've always been. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Nothing ever changed.
Yeah.
And you're safe in the confines of what society expects from you, and you've never had to think about it or question it. And so then when you start to meet people who have, it's not, I don't think it's that people are trying to be offensive or they're trying to be ignorant or they're trying to, I just think sometimes there's unquestioned assumptions simply because you've never been confronted with something like that. And I know that, like, I had a discussion on my wall where, at first somebody made some comments that were a little bit antagonistic, and then slowly they began to learn things, and you saw them begin to get a little flexible. And they were just like, oh, okay. And one of the things they were talking about was they associated gay men with women, like if they want to be a woman. And it's like, no, they don't want to be a woman. They're men.
Yeah.
They're men, and they like to have sex with men. They don't want to be women. That's a different issue, right?
Yeah.
And not every guy that puts on a dress wants to be a woman. Some people like to wear dresses as men, and that's a different thing. And so there's like all these weird little intricacies that but I do understand sort of the broad assumption when you're not used to it, when you haven't looked at it. It's so interesting, like what you can learn and the differences that can occur. And I remember talking to a gay friend of mine, and it was interesting because I had a kid that I went to elementary school with that now is gay. And he had a similar experience to what my other gay male friend was telling me, which was both of them, when they were little in elementary school, had little girlfriends, right? And so they had these little girlfriends. And I remember the one that I knew, it was really weird because he had a girlfriend like way before any of the rest of us had girlfriends or boyfriends, right? He was like, him and this little girl would hold hands and they would go home and they would kiss and like whatever. But it was like it wasn't sexual because we were too small for that to be a sexual thing. You know what I'm saying? So whatever this kid was manifesting, it wasn't quite like the kind of sexual boyfriend, girlfriend, or that I would experience later when I got older. It wasn't, it was like an elementary school kind of innocent little crush thing. They were probably just friends, like good friends, like best friends. And they were probably just acting out the social constructs that they had been taught as this is what you do with little boys and girls. They kiss and they hold hands and like whatever. But it was completely innocent. And then later, of course, he became gay. When I'm pretty sure that once he started to really develop a sexuality, that it started to become clear to him that he wasn't interested in kissing little girls anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for me, the experience was these crushes on little boys. And then when I got older, I had adult crushes on little boys. You know what I mean? It was like it just progressed into more of the same. But for these two guys that I knew, they both had little girlfriends. They both used to kiss and, whatever. But it was innocent little kids. But when they got older, the one that I'm closer to expressed how when he got older, he started to have feelings as he hit adolescence, that it was just like, whoa, okay, this is different. Like I'm attracted to the guys. And I'm guessing that that's probably what happened with the other guy that I didn't keep in touch with, that I knew in elementary school, that probably when he started to become more of a sexual, real being, that's when it started to hit him that he really wasn't interested in girls in that way. But it was like a weird shift for both of them, whereas for me, there was no shift. I never hit a point where I had to stop and say, am I? I mean, I've talked to you, Jen, about like a few women that I've maybe had different feelings for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I met them and there was like a little bit of, I kind of like this woman more than I like other women. But it was never anything that was like raging for me where I was just like, wow, am I gay? Or, I might have thought, could I be with this woman? But it was never anything that was ever going to, manifest or was going to go anywhere. It wasn't like that strong of a drive. And I really don't know what that's like to come up against that, to realize, at some point that something's different about me here. And I don't really, and a lot of these young people have to kind of figure it out in a muddled way themselves because there is no social role here.
Yeah.
There's no framework for this that you look to and you say, oh, yes, that's where I fit in.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that, when I was, first coming out, to myself and sort of in the larger community, there was a gay community for me to look to, and it was primarily around a bar scene. Although we did have some other non-bar social, groups that you could hang out with, but there was this established community, and I look at that and it's like even today for like transgender kids, for example, there's really not this community you can go to. You know, the closest you can get is the gay community, and the gay community is often hostile toward transgender kids, you know, transgender adults, everybody, you know. So, you know, it really, and I can't even begin to imagine what it's like for intersex kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you're going to have to deal with that, I mean, you know, most of us, it's like when we're dating, and I guess it's fair to say most of us, because I guess most of us do fit into this, like, you know, fairly standard set of didn't ever think about my sexuality, you know, that much.
Yeah.
You know, I guess that is probably the bulk. But to know that everybody you're ever with, you're going to have to sit down and have a talk at some point and say, I have to explain something to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it would be akin to having to tell somebody that, you know, you were dealing with HIV, or you were, and I don't mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing it to a disease. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean anything like that. I just mean that it's the kind of thing that you don't just want to tell somebody surprise.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and you have to at some point mention this, I would think, before you reveal yourself to a person, because otherwise it's going to confuse the other party who doesn't understand what's going on, because it's not something they've seen commonly. Like you say, it's so uncommon. And just opening up the dialogue and making it more well known and making people more aware, and to know that, you know, it's not a problem. You know, it's not a problem. It's not anything you have to be afraid of or freaked out by. It's just going to be something different, but the person is still the person. Yeah. And if you love the person, you love the person. If you're attracted to the person, you're attracted to the person, you know, and it's, you know, obviously you have to have a conversation, but it's I just feel bad, because I feel like for these people, there's probably this trepidation of what kind of reaction am I going to get?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
All right. Another Tracie rant. It was awesome.
Well, I don't know if that was a rant. So, what do you call those things? A monologue, maybe, but.
All right. Well, I've got one more little story I think we should comment on. This is from Huffington Post. Toru Hashimoto, the mayor of Osaka, says forced prostitution of Asian women during World War II was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
An outspoken nationalist mayor said the Japanese military's forced prostitution of Asian women before and during World War II was necessary to maintain discipline in the ranks and provide rest for soldiers who risked their lives in battle. So this is his actual quote. To maintain discipline in the military, it must have been necessary at that time. For soldiers who risk their lives in circumstances where bullets are flying around like rain and wind, if you want them to get some rest, a comfort women system was necessary. That's clear to anyone. Historians say up to 200,000 women, mainly from the Korean Peninsula and China, were forced to provide sex for Japanese soldiers in military brothels. This guy also told the U.S. Commander in the base at Okinawa that they should make better use of the sex industry there. If you don't make use of those places, you cannot properly control the sexual energy of those tough guys.
Really?
Really.
Well, as someone who has considerable experience in the military, I can say that I've never encountered a situation in which forced prostitution was necessary for me to maintain discipline in my unit.
Yeah, so, you know, it's not necessary for soldiers to rape women to relieve their stress of battle? Really?
Right. Yeah. In fact, in every unit I've ever served in, I always understood that if people didn't have girlfriends and or boyfriends, that as long as they had a right hand, they had what they needed. you know?
Yeah, I think so.
You know, a little bit of privacy, and you can take care of that for yourself. And, you know, there was even a guy in my unit at one point when we were deployed who we had a latrine decorating contest because we were bored. Okay.
To say the least.
You get really bored sometimes sitting around waiting for stuff to happen. And so we had this latrine decorating contest, and his contribution was to paint targets in front of the seats. Now, bear in mind, these are the standard Army four-holers, and so you go into this little wooden outhouse kind of thing, and there are, you know, 4 toilet seats, and your little privacy screen is if you happen to bring the 2-day-old USA Today with you, you can open it up, and that's, you know, that's all the privacy you have. And so in front of each one of the seats, he painted a target. And that was his contribution to the latrine decorating contest.
All right.
Needless to say, he did not win.
But he had a clean latrine.
Well,
nobody missed the mark.
Yeah. And everyone understood what that was for.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous that to say we had to, you know, enslave people. It's ridiculous. I'm sure that there were a lot of people in the South before the Civil War in the U.S. saying that, you know, hey, if you want cheap agricultural products, it's not going to happen without a slave institution.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but, you know, I'll pay more for my agriculture. I don't know what else to say. It's like some stuff, it's just like, no, this is not okay. People are not property. I don't know why that's so hard.
I don't either. Yeah, later on in the article, it's just, he just doesn't believe they were forced. He just doesn't believe they were raped. He's like, of course you have to have a system of, you know, prostitutes. But I guess if he would think that if you really need that system, if it's absolutely necessary to maintain discipline and you can't find enough willing women, then I guess he has to believe that you would have to force them. Because it's necessary to maintain discipline.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just like a religious apologist, basically, excusing all the Old Testament weirdness. Oh,
Yeah.
but they had to back then. You had to kill infants and, you know,
Yeah.
rape women, or I mean, marry them and have sex with them as your quote wife.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't know how to explain how. And I mean, it's not like Japan's a modern nation now. You know what I mean? They're a modern country, and I don't know where this guy. I guess we have backward people too, though. You know, and I guess there are people in our country that open their mouths and I facepalm, and we have Governor Perry that represents Texas that has some unique views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and it might sound like we're kind of, I don't know, living a couple hundred years ago if he were the spokesperson for the U.S.
Or, you know, Todd Aiken or something.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. It's
Well,
almost like a contest, like who can be the most embarrassing.
Yeah, I gotta say, Ted Cruz is right up there now.
It's a contest. It's not easy. There's no front runner in this. You know, it's like whoever wins would be by a nose. It would. It'd be like this photo finish. We'd have to be examining the. You know, wow, I don't know.
So that bringing up Todd Aiken, I had a very dark thought this week. You know, thinking about Ariel Castro and the 3 women he held for 10 years in his basement as slaves and raping them constantly. You know, probably everybody's heard of that.
Sure.
So one of the women conceived and had a kid that's 6 years old. Wonder what Todd Aiken thinks about that now.
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to care what Todd Aiken thinks, but
There's already people that are posting that it's like the little blessing that came out of it, you know? So you know, obviously nobody can blame the child. for what happened. Not the kid's fault. But it's not a miracle from God.
No, it isn't. And I mean,
it's just more unfortunate stuff that came out of a real evil situation.
Yeah, and I'm sure that her mother, loves her child, obviously, and the child was also a captive. She wasn't allowed to, be a normal little girl. I mean, her mother was a sex slave, for fuck's sake.
Well, yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, I can't imagine that her mother wanted to give birth to a child under those circumstances. And I can't imagine that this kid is going to come out of this scot-free knowing that her father is a rapist and, a kidnapper and generally an evil person. I mean, that is a burden that no child should have to bear.
I agree.
And yet, Todd Aiken's miracle child or whatever will bear that burden.
Right. And I mean, this, there's stories that have come out of this that say, I really don't want to give names of the women, but the woman that birthed the child and one of the other women was told that you deliver this baby and if it dies, I'll kill you. And the other woman was beaten 5 times when she became pregnant and forcibly aborted, really.
Yeah.
So the fact that he let one have a baby, and in fact wanted that one to have a baby, was a form of psychological torture. Forced reproduction as psychological torture. He may have had a favorite, which, that one may have been like, why is he forcing me when, he lets the other one get off without going through pregnancy? And then the other one's thinking, he let her have the baby while he killed my babies. Meanwhile,
and beat me. Yeah.
Right. And meanwhile, there being a favorite keeps the women off guard, destabilizes any solidarity they might have because, they've probably got Stockholm syndrome and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that he let her have that baby, maybe impregnated her just so she would have that baby and wanted that baby to be born, he was torturing them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was like a decade-long mind fuck for every one of them.
Yeah, he wasn't giving them anything. He was just trying to make the situation as frightening and as arbitrary as he possibly could.
Well, and not only that, but, the woman who is the child's mother, she was the one who basically orchestrated the escape, saw an opportunity and took it. And it may have been that he correctly interpreted that, that she would be the one most difficult to control. And what better way to control a woman than to have a child that she cares about more than she cares about herself, and then use the child as leverage. So,
Yeah. I mean,
not a benevolent act.
It's just a train wreck. The whole thing is a train wreck. And, when you hear when you hear people saying, thank God. And I know that there's just the vernacular phrase, oh, thank God. That's not what I'm talking about. When people are legitimately, oh, thank God, and oh, our faith in God saw us. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's like the same God that had 3 women tortured and raped for 10 years. Is the same God? Because that's pretty crazy. And I look at that and it's just like, somebody wrote to us today, I don't know if it was today, but I saw the letter today about problem of evil. And it's just like, if there's an all-powerful God, he could have accomplished whatever it was he wanted to accomplish exactly as efficiently without harming anybody. That's just a fact. If he's all-powerful, he could have done this and done it exactly as efficiently, achieved the same exact goals, nobody be raped, beaten, killed, nothing. Could have. If he wasn't able to do it without whatever he wanted to do without this method, then he's not all powerful and he fails the problem of evil. It's not a workaround for the problem of evil. It means you fail. You're not an all powerful God, and according to the problem of evil, you're not worthy of the title God. So it's interesting to me that the people who believe in the God that either orchestrated or ignored 10 years of rape and abuse, and abortions and whatever else, would then say thank you when it ends. It's not that I'm not glad that it ended. It's just that I'm not going to thank the person who allowed it to go on that long. And even the police for all the criticism they're encountering, for the mistakes that they made. When they finally did get the call that confirmed that somebody was being held, they were there in minutes. Hell, it took God 10 years.
Yeah.
Demonstrates once again, people are better than God.
Yes.
It's like, if you want help, ask people for it. Call 911. Don't pray, because if you pray, you might get it 10 years from now. You call 911, it'll be there in minutes. And I'm not saying 911 is perfect, but it's better than 10 years.
Yeah, for damn sure. All right.
And what about the women who get raped and killed?
Yeah, which he may have done too. I mean, there's no telling that those were the only 3 women he had, just in this case.
Right, but I'm just saying, not everybody is freed after 10 years. Right. And it's just like, there's a lot of people where they just find a body, or they never find anything. And thank God for that too, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's about it. I'm sure there's news we missed, but I think we hit some good stuff. So, all right. This is Beth signing out.
It's Tracie saying goodnight.
This is Jen. Good night.